Now let's scroll this document up just a little bit so we can see the top of the table here, starting with the time and the event column headers. And right now we have placed this content inside of our layout from the Excel spreadsheet, and it's pretty straightforward. We can see the content, but frankly, it's not very presentable. We want to improve the design and layout of this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select the entire table by clicking the top left corner. That will select the table and all of its cells. And now let's go back to the table menu and just browse a couple of the options we have available. Let's start with cell options. So table is the entire table. Obviously the cells are each little component of that table. And let's choose the first option here, table, cell options, text. Now within this dialog box we have several ways to format the text, the stroke and fills, rows and columns, and diagonal lines. We're not going to use all these features, but let me just take you on a quick tour of this dialog. So here we have cell insets. We can control the justification, that is the vertical justification of the content inside those cells. We have baseline controls. You can rotate your text if you'd like all of these labels on the left-hand side, for example, to be rotated at 90 degrees. You can do that. Under strokes and fills, this is one of the options that I almost always change right away. That is removing the stroke completely, not just making it thinner, setting it to 0. And because I have preview on, I can see those results instantaneously. I just think that all of those heavy black lines are just distracting. We're going to find better ways to design this table. Over here under rows and columns, this has to deal with row height. You can change the height of that formatting. And you can also add diagonal lines. All sorts of options here. Not exactly what I had in mind, so I'm just going to go ahead and set that back to no diagonal lines. But if you want to cross things out in those tables, you can use that option there. So the only thing I've changed is setting the stroke to 0. I'm going to go ahead and click OK for now. But go back to the table menu with me, choose Table Options and Table Setup. Again, just a quick tour of the options here. You have the ability to change rows and columns, table borders. Maybe, for example, you want to border around the outside perimeter of the table, but not every cell. We could change that here. We could give this a 4-point stroke and see those effects there. I'm going to go ahead and revert that. I really don't want that stroke on that table. Again, to see these changes in real time, make sure preview is turned on. So there you can see the stroke. Let me set that back to 0. We also have row strokes, so this wouldn't be around the perimeter of the entire cell, but strokes between the rows, strokes between the columns, so these would be vertical strokes. Now fills are one of my favorite features in terms of formatting tables because I think it adds a nice subtle effect. For example, you could have every other row be a nice tint of gray or something like that. And we'll do that in a minute, but in a slightly different way. We also have the ability to have header and footer rows. So for example, if this table was to jump from one frame to another, or maybe from page 1 to page 2 of a document, the reader might not know what all of these columns correspond to. So header rows and footer rows can give a little bit more context to the tables in all their instances.